Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. You know, today we're going to be diving into a book that's been getting a lot of buzz lately,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called The Untethered Soul. It's written by Michael A. Singer,
Yeah.
and it's kind of billed as this guide to achieving inner peace and self-realization. And I gotta say, I was a little hesitant at first,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of those kinds of books out there.
Right.
But this one, I gotta say, really digs deep. So we're going to try to unpack some of those deeper ideas today.
Yeah, it's not your average self-help book, that's for sure. I think that's what I liked about it. It really gets into, like you said, the deeper philosophical, almost spiritual kind of underpinnings of what it means to be human.
Totally. And one of the things that really struck me early on in the book is this idea of the voice in the head. Have you noticed that?
Oh, absolutely. That constant chatter that just never seems to stop.
Yeah, it's almost like you have a roommate living in your head, rent-free.
Right. And Singer calls it out, right away. He's like, listen, that voice, that's not actually you.
Which is wild, right?
Yeah.
Because we identify so much with that voice.
We do.
We think it is us.
And he has this one line. He says, if you can hear it talking, it's obviously not you.
Right.
And when you think about it, it's like...
It's so true.
It's so true.
But we don't often step back and have that perspective.
Yeah. It's like we're so used to being caught up in the traffic of our own thoughts that we forget to step out of the car for a second and just observe.
Exactly. And so Singer, he really encourages us, right, to examine that relationship we have with this voice. And the book argues that we're not our thoughts. We're the awareness that's observing those thoughts, which I think is a really powerful distinction.
Yeah, and that's a big takeaway for me, right? It's like this shift from being fully identified with all the thoughts to becoming more of a witness to our own internal experience.
That's a really hard thing to do, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a practice.
It's a practice, for sure.
And it doesn't come easily. But he gives a good analogy. I don't know if you remember this, but he talks about watching a movie, right?
Right.
You're watching a movie, you can see all the characters, you can see the emotions, you can even get wrapped up in the drama of it.
Yeah.
But there's a part of you that knows you're not actually in the movie.
Right. You're separate from it.
And that's the same kind of relationship he's suggesting we can have with our own thoughts and emotions, which I thought was pretty profound.
Yeah, that really landed with me, too. Just this idea that we can have some distance from all the drama that's unfolding in our heads without having to be, totally consumed by it.
Right. And I think what's really cool about that, too, is that it doesn't say you have to get rid of your thoughts, right?
Right.
It's not stop thinking, because that's impossible.
Exactly. You're going to have thoughts. That's just part of being human.
But it's about changing your relationship to them so that instead of getting swept away by every little thought or feeling that pops up, you can choose to observe it. Kind of like a scientist observes an experiment.
Yeah, like a neutral observer.
Yeah.
Just noticing what's happening without immediately getting all tangled up in it.
Exactly. And that's where it seems like true freedom starts to emerge.
Right. It's like you create some breathing space in your inner world.
Okay, but now that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
How do we actually do that?
That sounds great in theory.
It does.
But how do we actually bridge that gap between, being totally ruled by the voice in our heads to actually becoming the observer?
Right. And he does give some steps, right?
Yes.
And one of the first ones, and this is something that really resonated with me, is this idea of understanding the role of fear.
Okay.
So much, I think, of our suffering comes from that clinging and that resisting.
Right.
But where's that coming from?
Yeah, why are we so afraid?
And I think Singer makes a really compelling argument that a lot of it boils down to fear. We're afraid of things changing. We're afraid of things not going according to plan.
Yeah, discomfort.
Discomfort, uncertainty.
Loss,
exactly.
Oh, the big scary thing.
Right. And that fear keeps us, tethered to these thoughts. Even if they're not serving us.
Totally.
Even if those thoughts are making us miserable.
Absolutely. And I think a perfect example of that is think about what happens when somebody cuts you off in traffic.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, suddenly that inner voice goes into overdrive, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. It becomes a commentator.
You're just what are you doing, you idiot?
Yeah.
All of that, right. And it's where's all that coming from? I mean, yeah, maybe they made a mistake, but the intensity of our reaction, it's often rooted in fear, even if we don't want to admit it.
Totally. And it's that fear that Singer's saying is at the root of a lot of these patterns that we get stuck in. It's our inner voice has this alarm system that's constantly on high alert.
Right. And it's trying to protect us, which is it's coming from a good place.
Yeah.
But the problem is it hasn't quite figured out that we're not living in a jungle anymore.
Right. Like, we don't need to be constantly on guard for saber-toothed tigers.
Exactly. But our nervous systems haven't quite caught up to that yet.
Right.
So we're walking around with this, like, ancient alarm system that's just going off all the time.
Yes, and I imagine that gets pretty exhausting for people, right? Like, to be in that state of constant vigilance.
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly draining
Yeah.
because you're always in this, like, fight or flight mode. Your body's flooded with stress hormones. You're not able to relax. You're not able to be fully present.
You're not experiencing joy in the moment.
Exactly. You're so busy, like, scanning for threats that you miss out on all the good stuff.
It's like you're so busy worrying about what could go wrong that you don't even enjoy what's right in front of you, right?
Exactly. And that's what Singer is trying to get us to see, right?
Yeah.
He's saying, look, this fear, it's keeping you trapped. It's preventing you from experiencing true peace and joy.
Okay, but now, here's the thing. Singer, he says, like, instead of running from these uncomfortable feelings, these fears, we need to actually embrace them, right?
Right. We need to turn toward them
We need to turn towards them,
instead of away from them.
which sounds kind of counterintuitive, right?
It does. It goes against everything we've been taught.
Everything. Like, if it's something scary, you run away from it.
Yeah, our natural instinct is to avoid pain and discomfort.
Right.
But Singer's saying that's actually what keeps us stuck.
Okay, how so?
Well, because when we resist something, we give it power.
We're pushing against it.
Exactly. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
Right.
The more you push it down, the more it wants to pop back up.
Right. And the tighter you hold on to it, the harder it is to let go.
Exactly. So what Singer's suggesting is that instead of resisting these uncomfortable feelings, we need to learn to, like, make space for them, to just allow them to be there without judgment.
But how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
Because that's like a whole other level of like emotional maturity, I feel like, that not everybody has.
Yeah, it's a skill like any other skill.
Yeah.
It takes practice.
Right.
And Singer gives some really concrete tools in the book for how to actually do that. Like,
Okay.
one of the things he talks about is just, like, noticing your resistance. Like, when you feel that tightness in your chest, that clenching in your stomach.
Yeah, those physical sensations.
Exactly. Just notice it.
Okay.
Don't try to change it. Don't try to make it go away. Just be like, huh, that's interesting. I'm feeling resistance right now.
So we're just observing it like it's that movie playing?
Right. You're just watching the movie. And then he talks about, like, breathing into that resistance. Like, imagine that you can actually send your breath to that tight spot in your body.
So instead of tensing up even more, you're like creating space around it.
Exactly. You're giving it room to breathe.
Huh.
And what he says is that as you do that, the resistance will start to loosen its grip.
Interesting. It's like we're so used to like contracting when we feel something uncomfortable.
Right.
But he's saying actually the way to work through it is to do the opposite, to like relax into it.
Exactly. It's like when you relax your body, your mind tends to follow.
Okay, so then how does this like tie back to this idea of the untethered soul? Like, how does facing our fears help us become more free?
Well, because our fears are often what keep us tethered.
Oh.
Right. They keep us small. They keep us playing it safe.
Yeah.
But when we start to face our fears, when we start to realize that we're bigger than our fears, then we start to open up to new possibilities.
We're no longer limited by them.
Exactly. And that's where the untethered soul comes in. It's about recognizing that we're not our fears, we're not our thoughts, we're not our emotions.
We're that awareness behind it all.
Exactly. We're that spacious awareness that can hold it all.
Which is a very freeing thought when you really think about it, right?
It is. It's incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
Because it means that we're not victims of our circumstances. We always have a choice.
We have agency.
Exactly. And that's a really empowering realization.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so my thoughts are cars what now?
Yeah. So picture this. You're sitting on a park bench, right?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day, and you're just watching the cars go by.
Okay.
Each one of those cars is like a thought popping into your head.
Okay.
You see it, you acknowledge it, but you don't jump in the car and go for a ride.
Right.
You don't try to stop it. You don't get caught up in where it's going or where it's coming from.
Okay.
Just let it pass.
So instead of getting stuck in traffic in my own mind, I can just like watch the cars go by.
Exactly. It's about observation without attachment. And as you practice this, you start to realize you have a choice.
Okay.
You don't have to get in every car that stops.
Right.
You get to decide which thoughts are worth your time and energy.
That's a pretty powerful way to look at it.
It is empowering
Yeah.
because it reminds us that we're not at the mercy of our thoughts. We have the ability to choose.
And that's essentially what it means to be an untethered soul, right?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we are not our thoughts,
Or not our
or
emotions.
that awareness that's always there.
It reminds me, there's this one quote from the book that really stuck with me.
Okay.
Singer writes, "You are the one who determines the nature of your inner world."
Oh, that's a good one.
It's such a good reminder that we have so much more agency than we often realize.
Yeah, we get to choose how we want to experience life.
We do. Yeah. So for anyone listening who's feeling, maybe a little stuck in their own heads,
Hmm.
I think this book offers a really powerful path forward.
It's a roadmap to inner freedom.
It is. It's called The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer.
Definitely worth checking out.
And actually, you guys, we have a special offer for our listeners today.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to dive deeper into The Untethered Soul, you can actually get a free copy of the book with a free trial of Audible.
Awesome.
Just follow the link in the show notes.
Easy peasy.
So yeah, check it out. Well, this has been quite the deep dive.
It has. Really insightful conversations today.
Yeah, and for me, the big takeaway is this idea that we don't have to be victims of our own minds, right?
Totally. We have the power to choose freedom.
We do, and that's a really empowering thought to carry with us. So, until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep diving deep. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this deep dive with anyone else who might be on a similar journey. Thanks for listening, everyone.